Oh my goodness, look at all you beautiful people. We're back for another episode. AOA podcast. I am under the weather. I should not be here, but we got to talk about the day's news. And today is a whopper. The amount of claims against Diddy, the diddler, if you will, has now reached over 120 claims. And that is all coming from one law firm alone. So obviously this number is going to go up. There's obviously going to be more people that are going to contact not only these people, but others. And we know there's others out there. But the attorney, Tony Busby, had a press conference. So we're going to go through that and highlight just the important moments that you need to know. As again, the claims against Diddy now reaching over 120. 25 of those claims coming from minors, some as early as 9 years old. It's alarming. Every day I wake up and I go, this Diddy stuff, I know it's going to get bad, worse, but how much worse could it get? And then it just defies expectations. So we'll get into that right off the start of the show here. More JFK Jr. affair accusations are coming out. Jack Smith unseals some Trump evidence just earlier today. Got some quick thoughts on the VP debate. I don't know if that's less than 24 hours ago, and I don't know if anybody cares anymore. But we're here together. You, me, my friends. We got a podcast. Bear with me. I'm getting over one of the worst colds I've ever had in my entire life. So if it's a struggle, if it seems like it's a struggle, this episode, it is. But it is so good to see everybody, including TD Freelancer, Fly NY, and everyone else saying hello in the chat. I appreciate you all. Just so you are aware, it is October 2nd, our first show in October. For those of you who have been with us for a while, you know that every October we put a special focus on Stillbirth Awareness Month and raise some money for the fine folks over at the Star Legacy Foundation. You'll notice a link in the bio for this episode that leads over to a page that our own J-Sabs has started in memory of her beautiful daughter, Diana Hope, who she lost. The Star Legacy Foundation, nonprofit organization dedicated to reducing pregnancy loss and neonatal death and improving care for families who experience such tragedies. It's a beautiful community of families, health professionals, researchers, policymakers, individuals dedicated to helping make sure that every pregnancy has a happy ending. If you don't know, there are over 21,000 annual stillbirths in the United States alone, and a lot of those are preventable. These can be prevented. So if you can, $5, $10, whatever you have in your pocket, we would appreciate a donation over in the name of Diana Hope. As I said, link in the description for this episode. We'll do this the entire month here of October. So we appreciate your generosity. Everybody knows the generosity of the AOA holes out there is unmatched. So thank you guys for taking 15, 20 seconds to hear that message. Let's dive right into the Diddy claims. So, I mean, I knew these things were bad, but 120. Now, I first had Tony Busby on the radar years ago for something else. I can't even remember what it was. He is one of these big time lawyers. But early on in the Diddy saga, he came forward with like 20, like there were 20 claims. That quickly went to 50, 50 went to 100, and then 100 went to 120. And that happened very, very rapidly. And that's kind of what happens, right? We've talked about this in the past. Everybody discusses how hard it is for these victims to come forward until other people have had the strength to. And then when they finally do, the floodgates open. So we're going to hear from Tony. We'll put him up on the screen so you guys can hear some of the clips and what he had to say at his press conference, which is super important. I also want to mention, too, that we're going to discuss Denzel Washington and his involvement at a Diddy party. I have that story for you on this episode. And, of course, all the other topics that we previously discussed. Here's Tony at the early start of his press conference, and he's discussing, basically just kind of laying out what we're looking at here and what the age range is of the victims that have come forward so far.
Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old. We have one who was 15. 25 of the 120 individuals who are plaintiffs in these cases were minors at the time of the acts complained of. The time frame of the acts complained of is very wide. The conduct at issue spans from the years 1991 all the way till this year, 2024. If you wonder why there are so many alleged victims, that's your answer. We're talking about more than 25 years of this type of conduct. Now, although most of the victims who have stepped forward were victimized after 2015, this has been going on for a very long time.
All right, how crazy is that time frame? I mean, over 20 some odd years. 100. This is 120 victims today, right? This press conference was yesterday. Where is this going to be next week? I mean, could you imagine? Could you even imagine what those numbers could possibly look like a week or two from now? That's unbelievable. Also, this is not, I know that's a big, huge number. I apologize for the Kramer here, by the way. I'm sorry. I'm very sick. I don't know if I mentioned how sick I am. Can't even do the hair. I know 120 is a big number. That's not a class action suit. This is going to be 120 individually filed lawsuits. Even if Diddy was completely innocent of all, like the amount of time he's going to live the rest of his life in a courtroom, which obviously he's not, allegedly. I got the legal speak. We're never going to see this guy again. I mean, outside of a jumpsuit, right? Or a suit on his way in or out of court. He's done. Diddy's freedom is over. You know, so you might as well, start to come forward. We talked about Usher and Bieber and what are these people going to say? I'm going to mention something I'm going to put a big onus on Denzel Washington in a few minutes here. Lil Kim, all these people that have been in this circle for a long time, Ashton Kutcher, all the names you've been reading about. It's time to step up. It's time to start talking about these things because it's done. It's over with. It's going down. So you might as well do your part to be on the right side of this if you were involved at all. You know what I'm saying? Take a second to hit the share button. Throw this episode, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, on your Twitter, on your Facebook, on your Instagram stories, wherever you can share it. That's the only way we grow. It's the only way we really get this stuff out there. I mean, people will hear, oh, Diddy was a bad person, but a lot of people will ignore the stuff that is going on. This is going to be bigger than Epstein. Just looking at the scale of this right now, it's a little different from Epstein in several instances, but Epstein was so late and reactionary because nobody knew who that guy was when it was all happening. Everybody was so late to that story. Even though we're past the prime of Diddy's career, he's still a big deal. And this is all happening now. And the people who saw these things, who took part in these things, who helped facilitate these things, they're all still out there. So sharing episodes like this, other podcasters that are talking about these things, by the way, responsibly. I see some people doing some really stupid shit out there. Try not to share idiots that have zero backing. We deal in fact-based topics, right? Sources, articles, we can cite our sources. You gotta, shows like ours, and not just ours, others, you gotta hit the share button. You gotta promote. You gotta help spread the word. Because algorithms keep this stuff down. Let me tell you something. It took us over a half hour to come up with the title of this episode because we want to tell you what's going on, but we don't want to get caught in the algorithm with all the bad words that gets tampered down just because these social media companies are trying to make a profit and keep people on these sites for as long as possible. So they don't want them going into, topics that can be a little difficult to hear, but are important, especially if you have children or know anybody who has children, or you were a child yourself. I mean, this impacts everybody. So please hit the share button, if you will. It obviously helps us spread the word on huge pieces of donkey shit like Diddy. Where did this occur? Where are the cases going? Here's Tony Busby.
And these cases that we're going to file occurred primarily in New York, either Manhattan or the Hamptons, or occurred in California, primarily in Los Angeles, or in Florida, primarily in Miami. Most of these events and incidents occurred at parties, typically after parties, or album release parties, New Year's Eve parties, 4th of July parties, something they called a puppy party, the all-white party, although several of these events occurred at auditions. Many times, especially young people wanting to break into the industry, were coerced into this type of conduct in the promise of being made a star, or in the promise of having Sean Combs listen to their tape, or even let them read for Sean Combs.
There's going to be more on that in a second. It's disgusting what we are going to get into by the end of the clips from Tony Busby here. Paul with a great question. Do they all have some sort of proof? So here's what's interesting about that. The answer to that question is yes, but imagine having 120 people come forward with these accusations. That is definitely going to take some time to vet through. What Tony says, and what has been backed up by further interview questions that I've also seen, is he's got it. He's got it for a lot of them. He's got it for a lot of people that are involved with this that are not named Diddy. So you're going to hear some other names named. That is all coming. Proof, evidence, the backing of some of this stuff is all going to be there. Does he have it for all 120 right now? No. They are still actively investigating some of the leads that have come in the 120. So he's not gone through all of them yet. It's impossible to do that. Even if you had a law firm of 5,000 people, I mean, that's still a lot to comb through. So I can't sit here and tell you he's got it all yet, but he's got enough that he's comfortable enough to call this press conference and put it out there. He's got enough that I'm comfortable enough to come in and share the story of what he's got going on. Again, some of this stuff goes way back and other a bit more recent. There's a huge chunk of this that's a lot more recent. And those are the things where text messages, photographs, all that kind of stuff is all a part of it. By the way, I am pretty surprised at how you always see like the little photograph here or there. I'm seeing more and more photographs from the parties. I saw the most lewd one I saw was 3 women in a pool topless with champagne bottle. And that's, we're only in week 2 of the Diddler, right? The Diddler saga. Again, where are we going to be a month from now? Where are we going to be 3 months from now? Where are we going to be when the people that no longer have to fear for their lives can finally be like, okay, here you go. Here's all my stuff. There's going to be more. It's coming. Like, he's gone, but not everybody is gone. The big bad man is away right now, so people may feel safe enough to come forward, and they should, but there's a lot of other people involved. Now, we believe Jaguar Wright, that it's Jay-Z and all these other people. That I don't know. That I don't know. She's been ringing that Jay-Z bell for a really long time, Jaguar Wright. That stuff will all come with time. All of this is going to come with some time, But he's got enough of it for now, for certain. Certainly enough to move forward with, at least starting to bring, these conversations to light. Let's get into some of the drugs that were used in some of these cases.
Several, many who did in fact seek medical treatment were drug tested, and drugs were found in their system. Weird drugs that you probably never heard of. One in particular that continues to pop up is a drug called xylazine or trank, which based on our research is known as a horse tranquilizer. Now, there's been a lot of reports that we're filing a class action. This is not a class action. Class action is when one or two people file a case on behalf of a group of people. That's not this. These cases will be individual cases. Each case will live in.
All right, so there you go. Individual cases, as I was telling you before. Yeah, so the drug test, again, Paul, back to your question, is there evidence about this? Yep. Part of that evidence is these people claiming they were assaulted, going through the process, right? Because that's what happens when you call the authorities and say, hey, something happened to me. You get brought in and you get tested. There's, you get the nail scrape, all that, the DNA, all that kind of stuff. It's all involved, and you get drug tested. And these people are finding crazy, bizarre drugs in their systems. Could you imagine? I mean, again, you're a nurse, you're a doctor, people come in, they could be drug addicts, they could not be. You have no idea who these people are. But could you imagine being a person and all of a sudden you go in and you go, what? I have a horse tranquilizer in me? Are you for real? Like, imagine you're a normal person, whoever you are, you're a normal person. You go to a party, you wake up the next morning, you go, what the fuck? I must have drank too much. You don't feel good, you're sore, whatever. All of it, you go to the doctor. I don't know, something's not right. They drug test you. They go, you have horse tranquilizer in you. I mean, that must be terrifying. I mean, that must be horrible. Horse tranquilizer. For the love of God. Jesus. The big topic of naming names. It's coming. It's not here yet. And I know people get frustrated with that. I don't. I'm willing to wait. I love the process. Do it right. Don't rush it. I believe this guy is going to name names. I believe he's got it. I believe he is smart to wait. Listen, he's representing these people. These are victims. Some of these people, and you're not going to like hearing this, some of these people are going to want to settle ahead of time. Some of these people are going to want to settle, maybe get some money, maybe improve their lives, help them get over the tragedy that they've been involved with and move on. Not be a part of the limelight or this whole thing. Not get things dragged on. He's got to protect those people. He's got to honor those people. But the numbers that we're talking about, we are going to get names. The Denzel thing I keep mentioning is going to be a part of this. But listen to what Tony says, and listen to the inflection in his voice as he delivers this message on naming names.
Well, that day will come, but it won't be today. The day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs, and there's a lot of names. It's a long list already. And of course, I already know who some of these individuals are, but because of the nature of this case, we're going to make damn sure that we're right before we do that. But the names that we're going to name, assuming that our investigators confirm and corroborate what we've been told, are names that will shock you. These are individual cases. There are indeed other perpetrators involved. They will be revealed when that particular individual case is ready to be filed. They already know who they are. And I'm talking here about not just the cowardly, but complicit bystanders. That is, those people that we know watched this behavior occur and did nothing. And I'm talking about the people that participated, encouraged it, egged it on. They know who they are.
I mean, think about that. Think about what he just said. He put the message out there. If you participated with Diddy, we know who you are. If you witnessed it and did nothing, we know who you are. He's putting the warning out. He's putting the pressure on these people to come forward themselves, right? If you're in a room with 4 other people and they're all doing these horrific things, person 2 and 3 now, who let's say didn't participate either, now it's like, oh, who's going to be the one, who's going to be the one to, now all of a sudden, right? That's why when you arrest a group of people for something, you put them in separate rooms, right? And that's not just to see if their stories match up. That's also to see if who's going to snitch, who's going to get nervous that somebody else is going to snitch first and then come forward and whatever. So that's what Tony's doing here. That's what he's doing. They're also, by the way, working with authorities on these things. So some of these are going to be civil suits. Some of these are going to be criminal. So I'm telling you, this is of massive, epic proportions as what this guy is putting together here today. I think this is the single most defining moment in the history of our pop culture. Because I think there is going to be a lot of fallout with this, a lot of fallout. Like I said, he's putting the pressure on people. You have all these parties and what people have seen and who's done what. I mean, I've just seen people coming forward saying they've seen things. These people are going to really go into hyperdrive to make sure that they were not in trouble. Let me clear my name. Let me tell you everything I saw so I don't get dragged into this. You're going to start to see a lot of that happening. Also, again, like I said, they're dealing with criminal. So it's also who can, come forward, flip, if you will, to use a bad term, and help bring out 10 more people who did bad things. It may be frustrating for the public not to get names today, but it's actually the smart play in the long run for lawyers, law enforcement, the general safety of the public, frankly, because it's going to just force people to come to the table with, if Diddy was at the top, he's got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? It's a pyramid. It's an organization. It's a crime syndicate, if you will. They got to get those people too. And this is all going to help do that, waiting to deliver some of those names. And he goes pretty in depth too. And this is what I love about this, because again, this is a step that we got to with Epstein when the banks started to have to catch shit for some of this money that was being dragged around. That idea of, well, who else help assist in all of this? Because it's not just, listen, if you're in the bookkeeping department and you're cutting these big fucking checks for people who aren't putting out records, who aren't, if you helped facilitate this crime in any way, shape, or form, they're going to come for you, whether you're a really bad person or you were just trying not to be a bad person, whether you're a bank or a studio executive, it's going to come down on you. Again, I feel like because of everything we learned and saw through the whole Epstein thing, we're a bit smarter this time around. Listen to how Tony's going to approach this.
Individuals, but would also include corporate entities who ultimately profited off of this culture and behavior. I'm looking at banks, pharmaceutical companies, hotels. We know that many of these individuals were paid cash. We know that many of these individuals involved, whether they were the ones being assaulted and abused, or they're witnessing other people being assaulted and abused and then paid and threatened and told to leave. Typically paid 10 grand in cash and told to leave. And then threatened as they were leaving. So in addition to Sean Combs, you should know the defendants in these cases we're going to file will include anyone, of course, who engaged in the assault or exploitation, anyone who participated in such in any way, anyone who encouraged or facilitated this conduct, anyone who was in the room and watched it happen but made no effort to stop it, any venue or venue owner who was aware of what was going on but failed to stop it, any individual or entity who knew about the conduct and benefited from it but did nothing to report it or stop it, and any individual or entity who covered it up or helped cover it up. These people who know who they are should just come forward now. I would imagine, as we speak here, there are a myriad of people who are very nervous. You can't hide skeletons in the closet forever.
This guy knows what he's doing, right? Isn't it funny how teachers treat kids in kindergarten hasn't changed up until adulthood? You might as well come forward if you were the one who did it, right? How many times does the teacher be like, I'm going to leave the room Whoever took the thing better put it back on my desk. Might as well tell me now, because it'll be worse if I find it in your backpack later. All that kinds of shit. That kindergarten mentality, you still have to use that on adults. Full adults. Bird says you're all going down. I believe it. I believe it. Hotel venues, where Paul said, how about the Cassie video where he was flinging that poor girl through the hallways? They paid that hotel off for the security tapes. What happened? They eventually got out. That hotel should have to pay for that. You can't cover up a crime because somebody gives you a lot of money. If a man is viciously beating a woman in your establishment, that needs to be turned over to the authorities no matter what. Because what are you doing? You're afraid you're going to lose his business, so you take his money so that you can take more of his money? How do you sleep at night? Believe me, it's a horrible situation to do. I'd be pissed if I worked my ass off in a hotel career, right? Imagine you're Jim, the security director of the hotel, and blah blah blah, and you got kids, and you don't want to be, you're hotel security. You're there to be, you're there to make sure there's no big deal. The kids don't party too much. Nobody wrecks the room. That kind of shit. You don't want to be in a room with Diddy taking fucking money, or having him look at you and threaten you with. I'm just making up scenario. I'm just trying to make a point here. Try to put some context into it. It's a horrible position to be put in. I often say that people who witness accidents, people who witness violent crimes, that stuff sucks. You got to do the right thing. Then that's a whole year of your life, of you court appearances and all the interviews and all that kind of stuff. That's like, people got to live. The last thing you want to do is have to be put in a position to have to do the right thing. Because you want to obviously do it, but it takes a lot out of your life, and people have things to do. People don't ask for you to commit crimes around them. People don't want you to commit crimes in their hotel. But when they do it, you got to do the right thing. That hotel did not do the right thing. Lord knows how many other hotels are in the exact same boat. Now, I don't know if Johnson & Johnson are going to have to come to the table with some sort of baby oil settlement here. I'm not entirely sure yet. Again, we'll have to see what Costco's involvement is here. I mean, Costco came out already and distanced themselves and were like, we don't sell that much baby oil. That's ridiculous. But going on the baby oil premise, he talked about drug companies, pharmaceuticals, doctors. If you're drugging this many people, this amount of people, and the amount of narcotics that are required to do this, over the amount of times that they did it in a year, over the amount of years that they've done it, that's a massive amount of product, right? Like you always hear that story every now and then of the terrorist cell that got exposed and blah, 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 and this and that. And you're always grateful for law enforcement, but you always wonder, how do they do that? Well, they're looking for plutonium and this pretty explicit stuff. If you keep track of those things and where they are, and then you start to see large amounts of that stuff moving, then that's where we have to go start looking. Same thing with drugs. They may not be looking right now, but I'm sure if you start to go back and you go, why were there, this much amount of this drug purchased in July of 2015, that stuff is going to start to come up. And if a large amount of that stuff was moved that shouldn't have, because I would imagine if you're moving large amounts of drugs, there's protocol and procedure and regulations revolving around that. So if shortcuts were taken, if cash was taken instead of checks that you couldn't trace these things back, those people are responsible too. Those people need to go down. Again, there's probably somebody at a drug company, doctor's office, something somewhere, some doctor, some nurse, who knows, that was helping this stuff get out, trying to make a couple extra bucks for themselves, probably trying not to think about it. It's going to come up and bite you in the ass. You were helping these animals assault all these people. What's crazy is Out of 120 people, it's split 60-60. 60 men, 60 women. And that just goes to show you how debaucherous this was. I mean, they were flat out assaulting men and women. Didn't matter. It was everybody. It was everybody. But he brings up a good point. I sure hope they open up the case from the club shooting. He paid, excuse me, I'm sorry. He paid so many people off to lie. J-Lo should go down just for lying. What does J-Lo know? What does J-Lo know? What does Ben Affleck know? I can't imagine, knowing this guy's behavior now, he was any different at any point in his life. Listen, was he different before he had money? Maybe. Maybe he didn't have the means to do these things. But once he had some money, I believe that's the person who you are. That's the person who you are. So J-Lo, every one of his girlfriends had to know what was going on. Had to know something was not quite right. Maybe they thought he was just cheating on him or whatever. Maybe they didn't know the full extent of it, but you had to know something. And I really have a hard time figuring out, you're going to these parties, you're doing all these things, you see what he does, how he acts, how he behaves, being surprised by any of this stuff that you don't know what's going on here. I would be shocked if somebody spent more than 6 months, a year in a relationship with him and really never saw anything. I mean, come on. You're talking about hundreds, thousands of people that had a little piece of the pie that contributed to every one of these people's abuse. And they should go after every last one of them. Down to the janitor at the clinic that was letting the drugs out, or what. Again, I'm just spitballing here. I'm saying nobody should be safe. From celebrities down to the nobodies, no one should be safe whatsoever. Last clip here I want to share with everybody here. He starts to go into individual instances, which are all just horrifying and sad. And I really don't want to spend
between the two generations.
Sorry, I don't want to spend too much time on this because, this is pretty gruesome and not that wonderful. But I also feel like it is important that we do put at least one of these out there. And I'm going to go with the 9-year-old because obviously it's the most shocking. It's important to put some of this out there and just understand, again, what exactly it was that he was doing this whole entire time. And our appreciation to ABC 8 for the news clip and Tony Busby for the press conference and everybody who covered it, who put it out there for the clips for us to help spread the word and comment on and give our reaction to this content that's out there. So here's the instance of Tony describing what this particular 9-year-old who hasn't been named, probably won't be, what their experience was and what they went through.
Drugged with some sort of drug. That was kind of the MO. Another instance, this individual who was 9 years old at the time was taken to a audition in New York City with Bad Boy Records. Other boys were there to audition as well. All of them were trying to land a record deal. All of them were minors. This individual was sexually abused, allegedly by Sean Combs and several other people at the studio in the promise to both his parents and to him himself of getting a record deal. Another instance, another minor, told allegedly by Sean Combs that he would make him a star, but he needed to visit with him in private about it, away from his parents. Once they were in a private area, allegedly Mr. Combs made the victim perform oral sex upon him. Another incident.
All right. I said I was only going to do one. I did two. I can't do more. Can't do it. Sorry. Horrible. And people, we talked about this with Epstein. He knew who to go after. People who needed money, people who needed opportunity. I mean, Sean Combs, Diddy, he embodies those two things, money and opportunity. You want to be a star, you want to be a celebrity, you want to be a fashion designer, you want to be a liquor mogul, you want to be a business mogul. And you think about all the businesses he had his hands in. And people are so, I know it's so fucking foreign to me as a father of two, but some people are so desperate for a break. They will do anything. They'll do anything. And do I believe that they'll sacrifice their child like that to do it? Just so obvious and blatantly? No, I don't. I think they make excuses in their head to make it seem like it's okay. Hey, let me talk to your son alone because I want to see if he's really got what it takes, you know, and you're down the hall or wherever you are or in the building or whatever, and you don't think anything's going to happen, and then the worst happens. It's funny. I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You know, my wife and I, we just had this conversation the other day. You know, my son's in school, and in school now they go to this one and that one, right? They have to go to all these teachers and people and all this and that. And so one of the teachers that my son had to go see for an extra credit thing, it was like early before school starts. And I go, and then my wife works in the schools, right? I said to my wife, I go, what's the building situation like there? And you know, she was like, oh, you know, there's offices all together. I go, is there windows? I was like, is there any? She goes, yeah. My wife was like, yes, because this is the problem with reading all this stuff constantly all the time and going through all the Epstein things like we did. Now you start to get hypersensitive, you know. And I wasn't okay with it until my wife told me they rarely close the doors, but even when they do, there's windows in every doors. The windows are never covered. You could always look right in, you know, that kind of stuff. There's people walking around all the time, like all that kind of jazz. You know, there's other aides there, other people on my wife's level that are there. So I was like, okay, I had heard enough that I was comfortable enough with the situation, with what's happening, you know. But it's like, and I'm broken and deranged, and I know that, you know. But parents aren't really doing that. Like, how many parents are just like, oh, the teacher is giving extra help and whatever. All right, yeah, good. My kid needs it. Make sure my kid's on track, you know. You get so busy with stuff in life. It's so easy to just like slip into these things. Our kids are in public school, right? We are bringing them up begrudgingly in the Roman Catholic Church, right? Our philosophy is we were raised Roman Catholic. We made it through unscathed, thank God. Let's bring them up in it, at least through grammar school, and then we'll let them make their choice on what they want to do from there. At least we have some sort of idea of God and moral code and whatever. You know, is it God and Jesus versus Moses or Buddha? I don't know who the fuck it is. Everybody needs a little moral compass when they're young so they don't start stealing shit and hurting other people, right? That's really what it comes down to. So, okay, we'll pick the one that we're familiar with. So we go to the classes every week now. We got to go to the church and go do the things, right? I'm still bothered by this. I've talked about this before. So the hardcore people, you guys know. We're all in the church. The gymnasium is right next door. They go, okay, all the kids go into the gymnasium now. And I've never been comfortable with it. Now it's okay. You know, I'm like, I tell myself, and I'm right there. And, you know, you can see and you know, and there's like, again, there's a door, there's a window. But I don't know why these entities create these situations where there needs to be separation. It doesn't make no sense to me. And my wife, she'll tell you, because I got really angry one day and I go, there is no reason that an adult can't go in there. There's no reason that you can't say, parents, if you want to go stand on the side of the gym while the kids play, go ahead. There's no fucking reason. You start doing shit like that, you're inviting that kind of behavior. My kid had to go to confession and whatever. They do it all out in the open now. They can't. There was one situation where it was kind of hard to see them. I was like, nope. He's going to the one where there's full glass, because now they have full top to bottom glass doors so you can see into people going into confession. That's exactly how it should be. It should not be any other way at any other church anywhere ever. You know what I mean? No, Paul, avoid confession booths. Dude, I've done my I go, which one? I go, because then you could choose. I go, he's going to that one. She's like, do you want? I go, nope. Boop, boop. That one. Go to the one with the full thing. It's not worth it. Because what do all these victims tell you? I didn't think it would be my uncle. I didn't think it would be the neighbor. I didn't think it would be the softball coach. You never do. That's how they get away with it. The low-level people who don't have tons of money like Diddy. So, that kind of stuff happens all the time. But you tell yourself, you give yourself excuses, right? You say all these things. Imagine going to Bad Boy Records and you're in Manhattan and you're in New York City and the big buildings and conference rooms and, fancy water they give you and all this kind of shit. It starts to disarm you. It starts to disarm you. I'm not saying that those parents are without blame. They probably should have saw that coming. But, they're getting conned too. The parents are getting conned as much as the actual victims are. Diane, truth, Anthony, 100% truth. Always keep an eye on your kid. I don't fuck around, man. I do not fuck around. I don't want to. I don't want to hear. It's just so. It's so hard. It's so hard. It's hard to explain to a child. It's hard. Like especially with kids. It's my wife and I. We talk about this all the time. You want to know what a big struggle is? Because I got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. The struggle is how much do you scare them? Because you want to scare them enough so that they got their head on a swivel, right? They can anticipate problems, but you don't want to scare them too much that they're afraid of the world. You know what I mean? It is so difficult to find that common ground. Like my son walks home from the bus. It is literally a half a block. I can see where the bus dropped. Like it's not that big of a deal, but getting him to just get used to just close that garage door after, just when you get in the house, close the door after you lock it up. Oh, why, Dad? Why? And you can't, it's hard to be like, because you don't want some fucking crazy person following you in here. And, you can't, So what do? You say, you don't want anybody coming in here stealing your toys and shit like that. We try and do that kind of stuff. We're taking mommy and daddy's money, so we can't buy you toys. You try and do that. But, I find that the older they get, I want to kind of like up the scare level a little bit, but I always have a little trouble of how far do you really go here? So if there's any parents that have older kids out there, I'm all ears for advice. Drop in the comments. Let me know what you do. Because I'm all about that kind of stuff. It's hard to do. And it becomes increasingly hard, as the times change. It really, although I will say now with all the stuff, out in the open, I can imagine, like, I'm not that, like, I know it's crazy to stand up in the middle of the church and be like, nope, we don't have to go in there. I know that's still kind of crazy, but it's not as crazy as it was 25, 30, 35, 40, 50 years ago when all that bad stuff was happening a lot and being covered up. To stand up then, that takes brass balls. I mean, that takes real courage, It's a little easier. It's a little easier now. It's a little easier now. Neil's a great point. We've talked about this on the podcast before, the age of consent being 16. It's like, yeah, that's got to get upped. That has got to get upped. Again, something else our government needs to catch up on in the world. Something that doesn't come up often enough. But yes, that age of consent needs to really, 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 really come up. Again, I'm comfortable with some sliding scale. I know, like, between 18 and 22, like, because 23 and 18, it's only 5 years apart, but it's an uncomfortable 5 years for me right now. I don't, if I have an 18-year-old son, daughter, my kids reach 18, I don't know if I want a 23-year-old fucking coming around and picking them up, all that kind of. So I don't know what the answer is, but something's got to get fixed there. Something's got to get fixed. Good point, Neil. I discussed Denzel Washington earlier because I want to bring this up because I've heard of this story before. Denzel and Diddy were pretty close, really, really close. A source spoke to Us Weekly earlier today and said that Denzel Washington once flipped out at Diddy at a party. Combs was confronted by Denzel Washington during an all-night affair he attended with his wife, Pauletta Washington, in 2003. The source, who was close to the Oscar winner in the early 2000s, claimed Denzel screamed at Diddy, "You don't respect anyone." He and Pauletta had been partying until dawn, and they had seen something and stormed out. Page 6 of the New York Post, not Us Weekly, separate. They reached out to the reps to respond. Obviously, request for comment was not returned. And I bring up Denzel because I love Denzel Washington. I think he is one of the more incredible stand-up individuals that we have. I think he's a phenomenal actor, obviously. But I think he's just a good person. And I don't have a lot to base that on. I just think he's one of those good people. You know, just watching him in interviews over the years. I think he's amazing. I think he's lovely. You know, if this is true, and I hate to say this, but it's on Denzel Washington to come forward and discuss what that was. And that's hard to do because what's going to happen next to Denzel Washington? He's going to catch shit for holding on to this for 21 years. Why would anybody want to do that? Right? That's what happens. That's why people don't come forward and help. I could say something, but then I'm going to catch shit for keeping my mouth shut for 21 years, especially depending on what it is, you know. That's why I think we got to give a little bit of a pass to some of these people. Not everybody, but some of these people, because you got to get those stories. But imagine, again, the cover that other victims are going to feel if Denzel Washington is man enough to stand up and say, hey, this is what I saw 21 years ago. This is why I don't talk to Diddy anymore. You know, because I saw this one thing one night and I didn't like it. You know, and I think Denzel's going to find that there's going to be 100 other people. A lot of rumors, a lot of bad reporting, a lot of non-sourced reporting on Ashton Kutcher. A lot of people saying Mila Kunis already left him and all this and this. It's all conjecture. It's all hearsay. It's not, I can't tell you that. Do I think there's something there? I do. I watched a video of Ashton Kutcher at one of his parties today. I saw a photograph of a 6-year-old at a party today. Did he hire this photographer to shoot the Hamptons parties? And the guy brought his wife and his son. It was an afternoon barbecue. And they were photographing everything. They left at 9:30. And he said, at some point, he looked around and goes, oh, there's like 3, there's women making out in the pool with the champagne and all that I mentioned earlier. He's like, they think it's time to go. This is going to get a little wild. And they left. But the kid wanted to go. The kid wanted to swim in the pool. Imagine for a dad how cool that is. You get to meet all these stars and celebs, get to swim in the big pool. Kid must have been thrilled. Hard to say no to a kid on that. You probably don't think you're doing anything wrong. Even if you see a couple women kissing in the thing, you probably think, any sane person would think, okay, this is getting a little weird. It's time for us to go. Didn't see that coming, but we got to go. Not the worst thing in the world. But I also saw some footage of Diddy scolding people, telling them it's time to send the kids home. And there's been other footage of that. And I think we might have even played a clip before, but the footage that I saw today was Diddy telling everybody like, hey, in 15 minutes, all the kids have to go. And he said something to the effect of, my kids are downstairs. They're in bed. They're away from all of this now because I'm a responsible adult. Is what he fucking said. The fucking nerve on this guy. Could you imagine? But yeah, Ashton Kutcher, Denzel Washington. Think of all, let's put Denzel in the good category. Think of all the good people that maybe got whiffs of something or heard something or hearsay or this or that or whatever. and haven't come forward and said anything yet. The onus is going to be put on them to speak. You know, it's going to be hard to avoid talking about these things in the future when these celebrities have their next movie coming out or project or album or whatever it is. You know, Leonardo DiCaprio, there's that photo of him there. Sarah Jessica Parker, big mainstay in the Hamptons, always at his white parties. So a lot of people that are going to have to talk about what you've seen, talk about what you've heard, and at worst, talk about what you did. It's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen. Denzel was great in Macbeth. Name a movie Denzel wasn't great in. Honestly, name a movie where you're like, the movie wasn't bad. I wish Denzel was better. I mean, I can't. He's fucking great in everything. I don't like the whole like, oh, I'm a superhuman, gonna kill everybody, you know, blah 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 bullshit movies, you know, like Arnold Schwarzenegger type of movies. Go watch Denzel in the Equalizer series. There's 3 of them. All 3 movies are phenomenal. They're so good. That's a role that's beneath Denzel Washington, and he brings the whole level of Antoine Fuqua is a fuck hell of a director. So he crushes it too. But I mean, he elevates the whole entire experience. Just being in that movie. He's so friggin' good. He's so good. Yes, Denzel also said he didn't stay at the party till past 9 p.m. But he's going to have to talk about it. He's going to have to talk about what he saw that time. He's going to have to. People are going to want to know. And it's unfortunate because he's going to take heat for whatever he says, no matter what he says. Because he didn't say it sooner. You know? He didn't say it sooner. Yeah, obviously Rhonda's got a good point. Lots of, you know, all the women that Leo has been public with have been far younger than he. And he's another great actor that I love. Not as much as Denzel. I would put Denzel in. Denzel is easily in my top 5 actors of all time. Easily. He's up there. Him, Hanks. I mean, there's a bunch. We don't have time for that right now. Although I'd rather be arguing about movies than talking about this garbage. But yeah, he's one of the greats of all time. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say. Again, the Denzel story, the Tony Busby victims, the others who come forward, everything that is happening with Diddy, we are going to be discussing here. Only the important stuff, only the factual based or source based material is what we're going to share with you. If we don't have a source on it, if we don't have some way to back it up, we're not going to talk about it. We bring up the Ashton Kutcher thing. There's a lot of smoke there. There's probably fire. When we actually know there's fire, we'll have it for you. You know, right now it's all, again, it's so early in this process. But I have a feeling this is going to be the biggest Hollywood shakeup since Harvey Weinstein. And it's going to be even bigger than that. I mean, if you look at Harvey and Cosby and all these people that fell in that Me Too time, I think we're going to see even more people falling now. You know, and it's amazing that these people didn't fall during that time. Again, that was more movies and TV, right? That's really not really Diddy's area. Bigger than OJ? I don't know. OJ was a really big cultural moment. Bigger than Epstein. I think it's going to be bigger than Epstein. I do. I really, really do. I think the amount, oh my God, forget, like, not even to mention the Kardashian. There's so much involvement. Kris Kardashian lived in Diddy's asshole for a little while. She's paying rent. She was up his ass so much. She was paying rent. There's so much there between the Kardashians and Diddy. Again, lines in the water for now. Whatever we do find out, we will find out. Oh, there was a comment earlier. Oh, Mercury, you too. Yeah. You didn't hear about the boiled egg. People, all right. So here, the boiled egg story is, I guess they would bang people in the old AOA hole, backdoor action, stretch it out so much so that you could fit an egg in there. So the rumor that's going around was that they would do an egg test if you could put an egg in there, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if it's real because you can't trust anything these days with AI. But there is a photo. Who's the British guy? There's a photo of the British guy, the guy who was accused of molesting the other people. Him too. He's got problems. And Diddy. First, a photo of the two of them came up on a plane, and then I saw a photo of the two of them and Russell Brand. Thank you, DJ Shenanigans. Oh, a lot of people had it, but Shenanigans was first. Beat it by a split second. There's a thing. Russell Brand ain't holding the egg next to Diddy. I don't know if it's a joke. I don't. Because you hear shit and you go, there's no way they did that. And then you see a photo like that and you go, are you fucking with me? Is this an actual thing? This can't be. This can't be. But again, I saw the photo. With things like that, until we can authenticate something like that, I have a hard time making it a big topic on the show. To bring it up in passing, I'm happy to talk about it. Happy to discuss things like that, in a conversational sense, but not as an actual full topic. But if it does get confirmed, we'll be sure to let you know about it. It's fucking crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Let's go. We're gonna skip around in order here. More JFK Jr. affair accusations. Again, not looking good for JFK Jr. There was a little while here where I thought, oh, he can squeak out of this, and now not so much. 3 more women have claimed that they had trysts with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over the last year during his failed presidential run. According to a report linking up through an anti-vaccine group that he chairs. 2 sources told Mediate on Wednesday they had direct knowledge of the woman's allegations, which came to light after news broke that Kennedy had another alleged sexting flirtation with New York Magazine reporter Olivia Nuzzi. Nailed it that time. You got to appreciate that. After a week and a half, I could finally pronounce somebody's name. It's journalism at its finest. The outlet also reviewed texts from a woman detailing an alleged relationship with Kennedy this year. Kennedy's camp strongly rejected the latest bombshell claims in a statement to Mediate, calling the report untrue. Spokesperson said in reference to actress Cheryl Hines, Mr. Kennedy has had no romantic relationships with any other women other than his wife since their marriage. The trio of women know Kennedy from the Children's Health Defense, which is an anti-vaccine organization he heads. He has been on leave as chairman and chief legal counsel of the group since April of 2023, according to its website. I don't want to make this a whole. Maybe they're not anti-vax. I don't know. Let's not get into that argument. I don't give a shit. But the point is that, and this is something that I'm 41. All right, I'm going to be 42 very soon. Shut the fuck up. Point is, my generation is having a hard time realizing that texts are forever and can be screenshot. The older generation, they have no fucking, they're just so out of it. Like, he thinks these are private conversations that can't be shared. Like, people have receipts. People have receipts. And again, good journalists, they're not going to print these because they could be sued and taken down. Just look at Gawker. They're not going to run these stories without proof. So you get these text messages coming in here. It's proof. I don't know how you can deny such a thing. Now, I don't have the text messages myself personally, but if a major news outlet is telling me they're there, I'd imagine they're coming, and they're coming soon. So if this goes away, I'll be surprised. But, if you tell me they're there, I would imagine they're there. A lot of people still saying, and there was a report in Page 6 earlier today as well, too, that Cheryl Hines is on her way out and has nothing to do with the women. It's the Trump partnership. She fucking hates that dude. We played that clip. I think we played that clip on this show where they asked him, and she was standing right there, what would happen if there was a partnership? And she was like, he knows what'll happen. And he still went ahead and did it. That's pretty bold. That is pretty bold. Happy birthday, Eve Anthony. It's not my birthday yet. soon, but not yet. But thank you. And I don't think you'll know when it is. I love to keep that a secret because I like to deny it. And you need classes on spotting horrible characters. Yeah, I don't think I'm that good at it. I feel like when it comes, here's my problem. When it comes to my kids, I'm overly sensitive about it. When it comes to everybody else, I don't have the bandwidth for it. You know, I don't have the bandwidth. I'm so focused on making sure nobody touches my kids that I can't see the people. You know, I can't see the bad in other people. You got me there, Paul. You got me there. 50s ain't that bad, man. Listen, the 40s have been so horrible so far. I mean, aches and pains and things are breaking down where there shouldn't be yet. It's just not been great. I can't imagine. I hope you're right. Because I'm an optimist, I'm going to choose to believe you. I like you a lot. I'm going to choose to believe what you're saying to be true. I'm just very skeptical. I have my doubts. I have my doubts on those 50s. You know? Yeah, see, Mercury, wait till you get to 50. Yeah, I'm... It's hard. It's hard, man. 30s were great. 30s were a good time. I feel like the 30s were maybe the best. I mean, 20s were fun as shit too. But I think about the energy that I had in my 20s versus now, where I'm like, you know, I get up with the kids in the morning, get them off to school and do all that stuff. And then like around like 8:30, I'm like, boy, I can go for a nap. It's fucking 8:30 in the morning. I'm like, hey, I could lay down and get a couple hours. It'd be great. My grandma said her 50s was her best decade. That's good to know, Bird. I love let me tell you this. Give me a fucking old person to listen to. I'll be there. I'm there for it. Give me an 80-year-old. That's all I want to talk to anymore. I just want to talk to people in their 80s and their 90s. They're just filled with such wisdom. You know, they're close to the end, so they don't have time for bullshit at the same time. Like, it's just such a wonderfully honest era, I feel. You know, so if your grandma is saying that, then I'm really starting to get excited about my 50s. Because I can't help but feel like ever since I hit 40 and then 41, like I'm like, oh my God, the end is near. Like, I can't possibly survive this. This is terrible. And I say that in my head, which is hard to hear over all the creaking and cracking of my bones, which are suddenly apparently just deteriorating, you know, fucking looking up vitamins, being like, what could help my bone calcium? What's gonna up my bone density calcium levels? This whole fucking thing is upsetting. Anyway, because I used to go to the doctor and they used to tell me, yeah, okay, hey, do this or that, or, you know. Now I go to the doctor and they're like, here's a list of the 19 other doctors we want you to see. And you're like, the fuck? Wait, what are we doing? What's happening? Tell me about it, brother. All right, we have to get off this topic because I'll talk about this for the whole night. I can't. And all I talk about with my wife now, besides having our children not be molested by the people in the community, is how fast time is flying and how old we are now. The whole thing is crazy. I literally cannot believe it. We have to have another episode where we all just get totally fucked up and talk about stuff like this, like the essence of time and all that kind of shit. We need another one of those. We cannot wait. We cannot wait till April. Let's throw it in the comments. You don't have to do it in the live chat now. It's actually better if you guys come back in the episode and comment on it later. Let's start talking about when's our next excuse to all get fucked up on an episode and just talk. Just talk it out. Just go over some shit. When could we do that? You know, there's a brewery over here that does a halfway to St. Patty's Day party like every September. So should we do a halfway to 420 show? I mean, I would imagine that would be in October. St. Patty's Day is in March. They do that in September. I'd imagine at some point this month, it's going to be halfway to 420. Can somebody figure that out when it's going to be halfway to the 420 show? And we'll do that. Here we go. Mercury's in. Friendsgiving. Should we make the Friendsgiving episode where you just get all fucked up? Robin says Thursday. Is that the 420 or is that just your next availability to have a fun is tomorrow? Why wait, right? Let's do it tomorrow, you know? All right. Somebody figure out when is 1020 the halfway to point to 420? Is that right? All right. When the hell is 1020? You know what's really good is that new Bruno Mars song with what's her name? Who's it with that Lady Gaga? Oh my God, is that stuck in my head? I think it's Lady Gaga. Those two are good. They say the same shit about Bruno Mars, but they say Bruno Mars is like $40 million in debt because he has a gambling problem. October 20th is a Sunday. So maybe the 18th? Maybe the 18th. Maybe we'll circle the calendar on the 18th. That might be a fun thing to do. Okay, we did the RFK thing. All right, Jack Smith unseals the Trump evidence. Comey, right, didn't want to influence the election, held a lot of stuff back. Jack Smith does not seem to be wanting to take this approach. It's not just a Comey specific approach. That was something that the FBI was pretty sensitive about in election years. So this is really, there's no better way to say it, sensitive areas. But in response to the Supreme Court ruling that came down recently, Jack Smith just decided, okay, well, you know, let's make this all public. And a DC federal judge agreed and made public a 165-page filing by special counsel Jack Smith against former President Donald Trump earlier today. 34 days, by the way, before the election. I don't want people to get too excited about this, the people who hate Donald Trump, because it feels like we get a lot of this stuff and then nothing happens. And we know that this case is not going to take place until after the election. And if it does, and he does get convicted, it's going to be a madhouse. But essentially, the 165 filing was made public. Most of Smith's motion, a response to the Supreme Court's ruling earlier this year that presidents enjoy absolute immunity from prosecution for official acts while in office, rehashed some of the publicly known facts about Trump and his allies, with a few kind of new things sprinkled in. So here we go. The filing begins with, quote, the defendant, Trump, asserts that he is immune from prosecution for his criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 presidential election because he claims it entailed official conduct. Not so, according to Jack Smith. Although the defendant was the incumbent president during the charged conspiracies, his scheme was fundamentally a private one. Working with a team of private co-conspirators, the defendant acted as a candidate when he pursued multiple criminal means to disrupt, through fraud and deceit, the government function by which votes are collected and counted, a function in which the defendant, as president, had no official role. As you remember, I think it was July, the Supreme Court said the question on whether or not immunity extends to the election subversion case was down to the lower courts. So Smith filed this revamped superseding against Trump in August, and it was just unsealed today. Prosecutors argued at length that Trump's alleged actions pressuring Vice President Mike Pence not to certify the election was conducted in a private, unofficial manner, and therefore is exempt from presidential immunity. In one sample, Smith argued that a January 4th, 2021 Trump meeting with Pence and one of his personal attorneys was considered a private event because the then president dismissed his official White House counsel from the meeting. I know this was presented in the news today like it was a bombshell thing. It's not. Here's why. What else was Jack Smith going to do? He has the Supreme Court say the president in an official capacity has immunity. and then it's going to be up to the lower courts to decide what's official or not. Okay, so what does the prosecutor do? The prosecutor then has to make the case that these acts were indeed private and not of the office. I'm not surprised by any of this. I don't think anybody was shocked to see this coming today. The case then it not only becomes, can we prove that this was done? It becomes, can we prove that this was done and sway the case to show that this was indeed private acts and not acts of a president in a public official manner. The filing said, quote, "It is hard to imagine stronger evidence that conduct is private than when the president excludes his White House counsel and only wishes to have his private counsel present." It's a hell of an argument. I don't know how you argue against, I let the White House counsel go and kept my private counsel there because it was a White House issue. That's tough. That's really, really tough. Prosecutors also went through Trump's and his allies' efforts in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin to overturn his election loss, listing well-known incidents such as Trump's infamous January 2nd, 2021 call with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, underscoring the need to find 11,780 votes and efforts to produce a fake slate of electors. Throughout the post-election period, Pence had privately sought to nudge Trump away from his machinations, urging him not to look at the election as a loss, just as an intermission, according to prosecutors. Smith also argued that Trump's phone calls with governors and other elected officials in Georgia and Arizona were conducted as Trump the candidate, not Trump the president. There's a lot of truth to this. When you are the incumbent president, you do take that hat off and become the candidate a lot of the times when you campaign, when you're out on the trail. A lot of the times, presidents of integrity won't make campaign phone calls in the Oval Office. You know, they'll go back to the residency or Air Force One or wherever they are traveling around to use those times to make those calls, because whatever happens in the Oval Office is official business of the United States of America. So those personal things of trying to get reelected are done oftentimes outside of the Oval Office. Not everybody does that, but again, I say presidents with integrity. I couldn't sit here and give you a list of those who did or did not. I don't know. Prosecutors drew this conclusion in part because Trump only called officials in swing states with GOP governors, having made no efforts to contact equivalent individuals holding the same offices in Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, all of whom were Democrats. But what really sealed the deal, according to Smith, is that as President Trump had no official role in the process by which states appointed and ascertained their presidential electors. Therefore, he could not be acting in his official capacity during the calls. Again, making the point, just to translate, presidents don't have any role in elections. So if you're on a call about an election that you're involved in, it's as a candidate, private matter, not as a president, public matter. In the filing, Jack Smith wrote, "The content, form, and context of the defendant's interactions with the state officials firmly established that this conduct or his conduct was unofficial." Throughout the filing, prosecutors stressed that Trump was knowingly peddling false claims about the election. Smith's teams insisted the through line of these efforts was deceit. The defendants and co-conspirators knowingly false claims of election fraud. He raised fraud claims in this context about whether he could still win Arizona, not in the larger context of election integrity. This call was solely focused on the vote count in the presidential race and the defendant's fraud claims. So again, another example. He wasn't there talking about what happened down ticket. You know, was there fraud? Was there a bad election in the other races? It was solely focused on his own. So Jack Smith he's building a pretty interesting case here. I don't know how Donald Trump gets out of this one. I'll be honest with you. This one is really, really tough. I just last night watched the documentary on Max called Stopping the Steal. If you have Max and you haven't seen that yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. If you're undecided on who to vote for, again, I don't give a fuck who you vote for. Frank does. I strongly encourage that you watch it. If you're voting for Donald Trump, I strongly encourage that you watch it. You should give it a look and watch it. 95% of it you're going to already know. There was only very few things that I didn't really realize. A lot of what I didn't know came from Pence. And I think a lot, Mike Pence, he's the only one who can stop this because he was in those rooms. He had those meetings. I knew Pence was like publicly saying, playing both sides and whatever. I knew privately he was telling him he lost. But to actually hear, they had the vice president's counsel there, and so Pence doesn't speak in the documentary. The vice president's counsel does. To hear him recount some of these things and say them it was pretty powerful. It was pretty powerful to see, to hear him say we were in the room and Pence was like, you can't do this. They brought in that guy, I forget his name, really loopy guy, the constitutional expert, they call him. He's coming in here with this interpretation and all that stuff. And the other lawyers in the room are like, it's not how the Constitution is written. It's a pretty bold claim that you're making there. Excuse me. So it's a good documentary. It's 90 minutes. Again, it's going to be a lot of stuff that you do already know. But it also, again, they go back to the state legislatures, the governors. You hear from the people in Arizona and Georgia. And these people got death threats and all this crazy stuff. And they thought these allegations were crazy and they investigated them anyway. They did their jobs as best they could, I feel, watching them. And they had people come up to their homes. Guns, people marching with guns right up to their front doors, threatening their lives. Crazy shit. Crazy shit. That 4 hours at the Capitol was another crazy documentary, but this Stop the Steal documentary was just as interesting. Obviously, not as much action in there. Oh, Stopping the Steal, it's called. The Inside Story of 2020. It's 90 minutes. It's on Max. I strongly encourage you guys to take a look at it. It was really an interesting watch for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's really something to, we will all remember it, right? But to go back through and relive it, it's kind of, it's insane. And it really, it's what makes me think that the numbers that we're seeing in polls are really off. I've been kind of saying this on and off a lot lately, and it's true. But that Trump was the surprise factor in 2016. They couldn't see him coming. Polls couldn't have possibly caught that. I'm not sure what the polls are catching now. I think what the polls aren't catching now is the disdain for Donald Trump. These 8-9 years in, if you count the campaigning in 15, the damage he caused himself. That's what's amazing about this. If you take away January 6th, if he accepts the loss in 2020, I don't know if he's beatable in 2024. Because everybody's not pleased with the current administration, no matter who it is, because everybody's not pleased with what's going on. Everything moves way too slow. He would have just gracefully bowed out. He would have conceded. He would have been there on Inauguration Day. He would have got on his plane and disappeared for 2 years. And then in year 3, popped back up and talked about the crazy old man with dementia. He probably would have ran away with this thing. He probably would have easily sailed to a second term. Again, what Mike Pence said, it's not a loss. It's an intermission. They would have been back. But I think he caused himself so much irreparable damage amongst the Republicans that don't really care for him and the independent voters. I think a lot of people right now who are claiming to be undecided, right? I think they know who they're voting for. And I don't think it's Donald Trump. Here's the thing. When people wanted something different in 2016, they didn't want to say they were voting for Donald Trump for fear of being made fun of. We've changed so much as a country. It's cool to be conservative now, that has not happened too often in the history of our country. So it's not cool to say that you're voting for Kamala Harris. I mean, some people think it's cool. The first female, right, African American, Indian American, all that stuff. You can all list that as cool things. Absolutely no argument there. But Trump's charismatic. He's wacky. He's funny. Right? Guy's kooky, weird. He gets away with all this shit. It's not cool to go against that. And I think people that have voted for him or expected to vote for him, they're out there at the cocktail parties. They're out there at the backyard barbecues, you know, at the school events and all that. And they're like, I'm voting for Trump. I'm voting for Trump. Pollster might call them and they're going to say they're voting for Trump. And then when they get in that booth, I just think that the weight of everything that's going on is going to catch up to them. And they're just going to be like, you know what? It's too much. I'm going to go for Kamala. I just have a feeling. And I'm not the only one. You know, Bill Maher 2 weeks ago said, it's over. He's not going to win. And I was like, bold prediction and a little early. Again, I'm not ready to say that, but I am ready to say my sneaking suspicion is what the polls are getting wrong this time around are those people that are not willing to publicly say, I'm voting for Trump again. You know? Those people who it's easy. I mean, those people who are not willing to say, I can't vote for Trump again. I'm gonna vote for it. Even though I don't like her, even though I'm a Republican, even though I'm more fiscally conservative and I'm worried about the economy and blah, 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 and this and that. I think they're gonna vote for her. I just do. I just think it's going that way. Paul, didn't I say that a year ago? Did you? I'll have to go back and look that up. Sounds like something you would say. I'm going to be honest. Sounds like something you would say. Christine, you need to watch Candace Owens. She is tracing Kamala's ancestry. She's not black. She's Irish and East Indian. I have news for you. I don't give a shit what she... I could fucking care less. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. None of this matters to me. I don't care. I couldn't tell you how less interested I was in that woman's background. I don't fucking care. I don't care. I am proud to say I don't care. And here's why. My uncle did that 23andMe thing. And a friend of mine did it. I got news for you. You know what happens? What you think you are comes back a lot of the time. And then you like 75% of who you are. And then it's like another 20% of something else that you thought you were half of or whatever. And then you go back to that last like 10%. And it's like Asian, Egyptian, Middle Eastern, Mediterranean. Like it's all, I don't fucking care. We're all a little bit of everything. And who gives a shit? It means nothing to me. Again, until you're talking about an Italian American running for president, I'm not going to connect with the background of any presidential candidate. Unless you're talking about my particular background, I'm not going to give a shit. And even then, I'm not going to say that I'm going to vote for that person. I moved out of my neighborhood. I couldn't stand some of the people that I grew up with that were very similar to me. They're kind of dicks. So that wouldn't get you my vote either. But I'm just saying, like, you know, unless they're an Islander fan, I don't know if I'm going to give a shit much, you know? Not that I think many people should. Christine says we should look into it. She lied to manipulate the vote. I mean, her skin tone is quite dark. I don't know if African Americans are voting for her because she's African American. Maybe. And even if they are, who cares? I mean, there's going to be women out there that are going to vote for her just because she's a woman. What are you going to do? You know, I mean, there's people that are going to vote for her who don't like her just because she's a Democrat. There's plenty of Republicans voting for Trump because he's a Republican and they don't like him. You know, I'm with you, Christine. I'm not criticizing you. Knowledge is power. I'm with you. This is not a criticism of you. I just don't, you know, the argument of this or that, or, you know, this whole obsession with if she worked at McDonald's or not. I don't fucking care. I don't care if she made that up. You know, was one great thing about the VP race last night. Both of those schmucks up there, both misspoke about a lot of things. let's touch on that quickly. JD Vance is very comfortable in the national spotlight. Tim Walz is not there yet. He looked scared, terrified, like a deer in headlights. Some people on CNN said he was not prepared. Some people theorized that he was over-prepared, that he had too many facts to come back with. I don't really know what it is. One thing I do know is one of those guys spent a lot more time in front of the national media than the other. And that's indisputable. So one of them's a senator and the other one is a governor. So Tim Walz looked a bit uncomfortable. He had a real shaky start at the beginning. And the only discernible difference, again, the thing that was like clear, you can't argue with me on this. I won't take it. JD Vance looked comfortable. He looked calm. He didn't give a shit. He was in there. He was in the pocket. Tim looked a little rattled. You could tell me Tim won. Okay. It's fine. Here's another thing that's indisputable. We're 24 hours later. I don't think anybody remembers the fucking thing. I watched the entire thing. Did anybody else? Did anybody else watch it? I mean, I'll be amazed if somebody else watched that whole entire thing. Because we were like an hour into it, and I said to my wife, I go, I know I need to watch this, but I'm angry that I need to watch it. I don't want to watch this. I just don't care. I just don't care. Neither of these guys are of any importance to me, really. I mean, you always got to kind of think of it, if the president goes down, you want somebody there to be good and qualified and blah, 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 and all that shit. Oh, look at all of you liars. Oh, my goodness. Robin claiming to watch it all. Christina, Diane. Oh, my goodness. Let me tell you something. All you people I just named, we're going to form a group. Little social club called We need to find lives. We need to find better things to do with our time. First meeting. What could we do to better ourselves as people, to find better shit to do? Rhonda, you're in the club too. We're going to have to find crocheting. I mean, fuck anything. Egg decorating would have been more productive. I thought Waltz had a chance to slam Vance at a bunch of opportunities, and he fumbled the football a bit. I'm amazed at how JD Vance is true to his convictions. Like there was new text messages that came up, recent text messages, that Vance was shitting on Trump, and he didn't really bring that to the fore. He didn't slam that home as much as he should have. He brought up the 2025, so he did an okay job. They both did okay. I'll tell you what's amazing too, and I'd love everybody's feedback on this. They were so civil and cordial to each other. It was kind of nice to see. I said this to my wife. I go, I'm bored by this and I hate it, but at the same time, it's actually refreshing. It's nice that they talked about policy for $1.90 or $1.30. What did they do? 90 minutes? Yeah. For 90 minutes, they talked about policy. And it was boring as shit. And I thought to myself, we need to get back to this as a country. Because the last thing with the pets and the dogs and all the horse shit, not good. Again, another thing Waltz should have taken Vance to the shed on. Here's where Waltz couldn't win. Waltz should have won that by a landslide. Like that should have been a blowout by halftime. And he didn't do it. So it's almost an unwinnable thing for Waltz to begin with. I don't think it changed anybody's vote, though, to be honest with you. I really don't. I mean, did it change anybody's vote? Did anybody watch that whole thing and think, oh, I'm going to vote for the other person now? I'd love to hear from you, too. I'd be amazed. Vance is a better liar than Trump. Maybe. Vance is more put together than Trump. And let me tell you something. Vance might stick around for a little while. Vance scares me, though. I don't overly love super religious people. Waltz brought up all those people who died, in the one lady who died trying to get an abortion, the other people who had difficulties and all this. He did it. He got it there. It should have been like, admit it, in your towns, in your areas, where were the sound bites? Where were it was nowhere. That thing happened. It was over and gone. It was gone. It should have been bigger. Waltz should have been able to create some sound bites out of that, and he just didn't. He just really didn't. But the two of them, the amount of time where they were like, we agree with each other. I agree with you on that. I was like stunned at what was going on here. I was surprised. I'm like, these are the same. They're the same as the people on the ticket just above them, and it was like a firing squad of that presidential debate. It was tense. Again, another thing that I think goes against Trump. Like, there's something about that guy who he just is a spark plug. And as much as that turns people on, those people are already his followers. That also turns some people off. You hear Frank say it all the time. He says it all the time. He goes, I want to go back to not knowing what the president is doing. I want to go back to that. It was better. It was better when every little thing the president did wasn't a fucking huge lead story. For whatever reason, Trump carries that charisma that he draws that attention in, and it's going to drive people crazy. It's going to drive a lot of people crazy. I will say that the amount of people that will abandon Trump if he loses this time around will be alarming. Like Lindsey Graham and all these people that don't really like him, Ted Cruz, right? All these people that fucking hate him. If he loses this time around, he's not going to have that support. He's just not going to have that support. And it'll be interesting to see where Vance goes from here, if Vance will be able to continue with that support. Because that's what he's thinking in his head. I think Vance is thinking big time. Trump loses here, I'm the presumptive nominee for 28. I don't know if he will be, but that's what he's going to be thinking. That's what he's going to be thinking. Boy, this was a hell of an episode. I knew sorry. I didn't think I was going to make it. But I did it because you guys were spectacular. Let's give it up for the AOA halls. You guys were fucking great with the comments tonight. Great with the comments. All the way down to the end, Lindarella. I see you. Yes, I'm gonna go rest up. Thank you, TD Freelancer. Love seeing the love all around to everybody. Keep the conversation going on our Discord. Link in the description for that for you all. Appreciate all the kind words. Thank you. I'm gonna go rest up. I'll catch you guys over on Friday.
Show me potato salad.
Oh, the Gahead.
Gahead.
Misfired.
Gahead.
Bye.